Hello and welcome to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramoni, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Ryan Lancello.
Hello, governor.
Okay.
Get that out of the way.
Get it out of the way. So, Dick Tracy, we mentioned this one, I think, during the Nothing But Trouble episode, or you brought it up. We were talking about matte paintings.
Yeah, and design. We were doing everything we do has a really good design, it seems like.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to... I think it lends itself to movies that have a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, but I think that's where it got brought up, the matte paintings and Nothing But Trouble.
Because this movie has a lot of great matte paintings. So we kind of agreed there. We're like, oh, we have to do Dick Tracy at some point. And then we put out a poll, and it was either 1941 Dick Tracy, and it was pretty, I think it was like 77% of the vote went to Dick Tracy. Wow. So here we are. We watched it recently. I hadn't seen it probably since childhood.
Same here.
Yeah.
I probably saw it when it came on video, and then maybe on TV a couple times, and then that was that.
1990 it came out. So what did you think of it, watching it?
Well, I like I said, the thing that brought it up was I was just seeing clips on YouTube, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I totally forgot. I was like, this movie is kind of amazing looking. Yeah. And then you watch it, and sure enough, it's amazing looking. Like, it's breathtaking at parts. And I thought the movie was good, too. I was actually really surprised how much I liked the movie itself.
It's a combination of a lot of really cool things. The set design, obviously, and then the makeup, the practical effects. There's a lot of miniatures that are used.
Yeah. A
lot of matte painting. Directed by Warren Beatty, who is, kind of off the radar now. He's kind of retired, I guess.
It's weird. I mean, I feel like we got to talk about Warren Beatty a lot with this one. I mean, he directed, produced, and starred in Dick Tracy. And I mean, this guy was like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, what happened to the power player in Hollywood? Like, Warren Beatty was like a power player. Like, he started young. I mean, I think the first thing he produced was Bonnie and Clyde. He knew young to kind of be a producer, and you have more control that way. But I mean, who throws their weight around for like passion projects anymore?
Yeah, I mean, certainly not many people.
The only one I could really think of was like James Franco. Yeah.
I mean,
it's weird. I mean, like, he'll make what he wants to make. I generally don't like it, and I think you can see the difference is, Franco is like, and maybe it's a sign of the times. It's drenched with irony a lot of times. Mm-hmm. There's no irony with Warren Beatty in the movies he's made. There just isn't. I mean, he's directed 5 movies himself, right?
Yeah.
The first one's Heaven Can Wait, just it's really good. It's really funny. I just watched it. The second, so this is what's crazy about Warren Beatty to me. Not to get too off track here.
No, please.
So he has a huge hit with Heaven Can Wait, right? Mm-hmm. And he decides, all right, for the next one, his story he wanted to do for years, he wants to make Reds. You ever see Reds?
I have not.
I don't know why this movie's fallen out of the public consciousness. It's a masterpiece. It's incredible. He wrote, directed, produced, and starred in Reds. It's an almost 3.5 hour long movie about John Reed. John Reed wrote the book 10 Days That Shook the World about the October Revolution.
Okay, so it's a communism.
John Reed was an American communist, essentially.
Okay.
So I assume the subject matter and the length scare people off, but I cannot recommend this movie enough. I'm no communist, but this movie's unbelievable. And it's not a pro-communist movie. It's just about a guy who was a communist. But it's like, it's amazing. This movie should be on people's top 10 lists, and I don't see it. And go watch Reds.
I gotta. What's that, like 1980, 78, around there? I think.
I want to say 80.
Okay,
but no, it wasn't 80. A little later.
Okay, I think it's like early 80s.
Yeah. But it's crazy because that's the height of the Cold War,
right?
And Warren Beatty goes, "I'm going to make a movie about John Reed," and they did. Of course, no one wanted to. And it's just how like you have the juice to get that movie made, and not only do you have juice to get it made, the movie was a hit. Like, commercially, critically, I don't know. It got Best Director. It lost Best Picture to Chariots of Fire, which I've heard sucks.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. That's one that, like, you and I talked about a while ago where you were like, do you know anything about Chariots of Fire beyond that scene on the beach where they're running and the song? I was like, nope.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
It's funny, I sent you, this is off topic, but remember that SCTV tribute to the movies I sent you? It was the 5 neat guys. They were singing songs about the movies that year.
Sure.
And they do Chariots of Fire, and their big gripe is that there's no chariots in the movie. And then they do Reds. They do a little musical tribute to Reds, yeah. So if I'll post it on Twitter. But it's a great from SCTV sketch comedy about movies that year, and they both mentioned Chariots of Fire and Reds. So like you're saying, they were both really big movies that year.
It was big. I mean, like I said, I can't believe people went and saw this. It goes to it's another thing to think about. What we've become as a viewing audience. Mm-hmm. There was a stomach for these kind of movies back then.
Sure,
these long epic movies that you had to sit through. They had an intermission. Like Reds has an intermission. Like the last one that I Hateful Eight had one, and Hateful Eight's fine, but it's long.
I like an intermission though.
I do too. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But I think people had more. Maybe it was more of an attention span thing, or something, because you really do got to settle in and watch an almost 4-hour long movie.
Sure.
It's a commitment.
But if you're prepared for it though,
yeah,
and that's a lot of movies today. Like I was talking about, like I like a good solid 90 minutes, but like if I'm prepared for a movie that's 3.5 hours, I'll enjoy it.
Sure.
But there's a few where like I feel like if your movie hits like 2 hours and 15 minutes, that's where you kind of got a foot in both of those doors, where you had to cut some things, but not all you should have cut, so it just feels really long.
Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong, there is fatigue.
Yeah.
It will set in. Even on a movie I love that's 3 hours long, I'll be like, it's great. Me and my girlfriend are watching Reds because she had never seen it, and it'd been forever since I saw it. And there's a part, it's basically halfway through the movie, and it almost seems like the movie's wrapping up. It fades to black, and intermission comes up.
Oh
like
my
the words,
gosh.
and she's like, she audibly gasped. She's like, wait, what? Because you're conditioned to think it's wrapping up now. You can feel it. You can just kind of sense it.
Yeah.
But, not to get too off track, man, but Reds.
Reds.
Oof, wow.
I don't think it's off track at all. I mean, I think, again, because Warren Beatty's stamp is all over this movie, and he's someone that I don't think many people today think of as the powerhouse writer, director, actor as he once was.
I remember being a kid, and he was in his 60s, and he was still getting like People magazine's most sexiest man alive. He was like huge. It was Warren Beatty.
Yeah.
Like, he was a big deal. And then I think after like Town and Country, if you remember that movie, big bomb, big flop.
Okay.
He kind of just fell off the map.
I thought Bulworth was kind of the...
Bulworth was successful.
So what was after Reds? What did he
direct?
Yeah.
Dick Tracy.
Oh, okay.
Brings us right into Dick Tracy.
Well, I read an interview with him where he said like he never kind of expected to be a director. Like it came to a point where he was doing so much work on it.
Why don't I just do this?
Yeah.
It's because, I think a lot of people had that reaction to him where, he's got his fingers in every little pie, and it's just like, why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
Because I don't even think with Dick Tracy, I don't even think he wanted to star in it. He didn't want to star in it. I don't think he wanted to direct it even. But he gets to a point, I think, where he's just like, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, and his vision is one of the things that makes the movie what it is.
It's weird with some of these guys, they get a reputation. Warren Beatty, legendary pussy hound. Yeah. If you ever want to read about him, some of his exploits, good book I lent to a friend that he never read and I never got back. It was called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. It's all about filmmaking in the 70s, all those guys, the Brat Pack, whatever you whatever you want to call them. But yeah, oh God, Robert Towne, the screenwriter, and Warren Beatty. Oh boy,
was he involved with Madonna?
They were an item.
Okay.
At one point, yeah.
Well,
there's everything that moved.
Yeah,
Warren Beatty.
Of course.
But you get a reputation as like that's what you think. Warren Beatty, I don't think is remembered enough as an artist. He's got, like I said, the people's sexiest man. You get like an image of kind of a lightweight guy. Then he was a trained pianist. I mean, he wrote, directed, produced, starred in these movies. That is no small feat.
Yeah.
Like Reds, if 100 people made Reds, I'd be impressed. Like one guy kind of steered that
Well, you
ship.
can tell he's pretty respected with his peers because a lot of them turn up in Dick Tracy. Like, it's filled with people who I would be willing to bet a few of them took pay cuts or didn't get paid more than scale to be in this movie.
Well, one of the biggest stars of her era.
Yeah, Madonna, right? She didn't
worked for scale.
Worked for scale to be in it.
She got paid $35,000.
She got paid with Warren Beatty.
Well, she lucked out on that too. That Dick Tracy was good for her, but still, I mean, it's a smart move. I'll give her credit. It's shrewd. Is that look?
She's fantastic in the movie too.
She's good.
Yeah.
I never had a huge problem with Madonna.
Yeah, no, she plays the part of that role really well.
Yeah.
She looks well in this world. She looks like someone that's pulled out of the 1930s into a noir film.
Totally fits.
It's written by a couple of guys, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. I looked into them a little bit. They didn't really have too many like big films before this. They wrote Turner and Hooch. I don't know. Did you see anything else that stuck out to you about them?
I may have. Your research and stuff blends together. Did they do Top Gun?
Yes, Top Gun. That's what I did.
Yeah,
so Top Gun, and this leading into that. This is a movie that bounced around a lot during the 80s. Paramount was developing it for a while. Steven Spielberg, they wanted him to direct it.
I feel like he had like a 20-year stretch where he was getting
everything. Run the finger first, yeah. And then it ends up with John Landis, who wanted Clint Eastwood in the title role. Then eventually it ends up...
What happened to Landis? Why didn't he direct it?
I feel like Landis, something happened in the 80s. Oh, right. A guy died on his movie.
Oh, and 2 kids.
And 2 kids died
and he was charged with manslaughter, and he had to kind of...
he had to go to court.
Not direct Dick Tracy.
Yeah. There's a really excellent series on the streaming service Shudder. It's called Cursed Films. And there's an episode on the Twilight Zone movie, which he directed a segment of, and it's really interesting to watch. I mean, it's a debate in and of itself who is at fault there. It's just a really tragic tale about actors who lost their life on a film and whether who's to blame. But it left John Landis's career to lull for a little bit. Mm-hmm. There was a stigma about hiring him, so he doesn't end up directing it. And eventually, like you're saying, I think Beatty was interested in, or how do you say his name? Beatty. He was interested in producing it at least, and then at that point a couple other actors turn it down, and he just decides to star in it, and then he's like, well, I just might as well direct it at this point. So
as seemed to have happened to him a few times.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he has really interesting visions for his films that other people probably don't agree with, or like I feel like there might be some creative differences if someone else got hired on this.
Yeah, probably. And like you said, he does seem to have a respect of people in his field, because I mean there are heavy hitters in this movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll go through the cast real quick. You got Pacino, Madonna, Glenn Headley. I always loved her.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. Seymour Cassell, Charles Durning, Kathy Bates.
Yeah, I picked that up.
As the cenographer. Yeah. I did not catch that the first time. And now anymore, I always sit through the credits to see if I catch little things. I'm like, Kathy Bates, where the fuck was she? And sure enough, she's in there. Same with Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah, she's in the mob scene.
Yeah. She didn't really get any lines, but she's in there.
She's in there.
But I mean, after that, you got Dustin Hoffman, who did the movie as a favor.
Yeah.
William Forsythe, Edo Ross, Mandy Patinkin, who it's always fun to see Mandy Patinkin play the sad piano player with a comb over. He just fits the role so well. But I mean, like
Dick Van Dyke,
Paul Sorvino, James Caan, Henry Silva. Like it just
it goes on and on.
And then cast alone. Then you have the crew, who, like I said, heavy hitters, dude. You got Vittorio Storaro, the great Vittorio, doing the cinematography. This guy has done some of the best movies you've ever seen. He did Apocalypse Now. He did Reds. He also did probably the best looking movie I've ever seen. It's Bernardo Bertolucci's The Conformist. I think I've talked to you about this before. So just like that's another one I'll recommend for our American audiences listening. You might have a little trouble. Just historically, you might not get what's going on in The Conformist, because it's about the rise of fascism in Italy, blah, 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 blah. But it's just go watch it. Just let it wash over you. It's fantastic. But, I mean, Vittorio Storaro has won a ton of Oscars. You got Richard Silbert doing the production design. Oh, I didn't know this. Richard Silbert had a twin brother. I think it was Paul Silbert. Paul Silbert. They were both set designers, both Oscar winners.
Wow.
Yeah, they were really good. But Richard Silbert's done Manchurian Candidate, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Graduate, Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, Shampoo, Reds, Carlito's Way, and you know what else he did?
Bonfire of the Vanities.
He did do that, but one you may not get.
What's that?
Cheers.
Oh, really?
The TV show, yeah. He designed the set of Cheers, the iconic set.
Iconic production designer.
This guy's insane.
Yeah.
So the crew and the cast... I mean, you're already off to a good start.
Well, and don't forget, makeup is Caglione and Doug Drexler, who studied under Dick Smith, the godfather of makeup, who did Brando's work on The Godfather, was kind of like the guy to train makeup artists. And Caglione, or is it Caglione or Caglione, he becomes Pacino's makeup artist for the rest of his career. He's still doing it. Yeah. So he did on The Irishman, everything Pacino's done since.
And
he's
it's a
done.
Great story with Pacino. He's playing Big Boy Caprice, which, is like the mob boss of the movie, Tracy's adversary. They had him much different initially, apparently.
Well, in the comics, he's played as like an obese big boy. That's his thing.
Okay. But Pacino kind of almost worked with him and created that look for Big Boy.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good.
So apparently he didn't want to do that. And again, Warren Beatty was like, go for it. Like, gave him free reign to design the character. But he that's why Big Boy has like a big nose. He's got like a hunchback, a big chin. Instead of being obese, he just adds big kind of facial features. So it works.
It's hysterical. I love Pacino in this.
Yeah. We'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, so just a little, before we get into the plot of this movie, a little bit backstory on Dick Tracy. It's created by Chester Gould in 1931, originally a comic strip. It does eventually get into comic books, of course. The comic strip Gould wrote the comic strip until 1977, and then it was taken over by other writers. Of course, there were some 30s and 40s radio serials. There was some, RKO did a bunch of Dick Tracy movies in the 40s. But other than that, it was kind of not a brand that anyone was really, fawning over. I mean, you had just had the development of this movie, I feel like, predates the development of Batman, which I thought would have been the bigger influence on it. And obviously, because Danny Elfman's doing the score, which sounds a lot like the Batman score, I thought when this movie started, I was like, oh, they were just trying to do a Batman. But I don't think that was the case. I think this movie was in development maybe a little bit longer.
Batman certainly didn't hurt what they were doing here. Do you know what I mean?
It did in the end. I mean, I think financially.
Well, I mean, in the sense of like, what am I trying to get across here?
Do you think it was easier to get the movie made because?
I think people saw what you could do with Batman.
Okay.
And then they definitely, I'll tell you one thing, we can get into it later, the marketing was completely inspired by Batman.
Of course. Huge.
And, yeah.
So that's where we begin the story. Kind of Dick Tracy was not a brand that I don't think kids in particular kind of really knew about. I feel like, they might have remembered some of it, seen the comics, but it wasn't like a Batman type thing where it was that prevalent. It was Dick Tracy.
You're right.
It's more of like that was their parents kind of guy.
For sure.
So, so it's an interesting movie. I guess we can get into the plot a little bit.
Sure.
Do we have anything more you want to add about behind the scenes work? Okay. So it opens with that scene where you have like the Rogues Gallery playing cards in that garage. Now the thing about that scene I remember is that all of the characters, excluding that one at the table, let's think he's Littleface.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
So apparently that guy was played by a kid. That was the only way they could achieve the face to look right. And it's a guy who has a massive head but a little face.
Right.
So to do that, they just had a kid because he has a little face and put him in like prosthetics. So it's really interesting.
Well, it was a tough one too because I think the character in the comics, he has a normal sized head, just a little face.
So that's what they were trying to do.
Impossible to do if you don't make the head giant.
But then there's like a character, the Brow. They're all like really interesting gangster characters. All of them in this scene, excluding, I believe, the little face, had action figures made.
Really?
So to me, watching this movie now, I was shocked that like all these characters that had these big marketing behind them die in like the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Almost immediately. I was actually shocked too. I was like, oh, they're dead already?
I thought they were going to be like the guys of the movie,
yeah.
And they're killed off instantly by Flat Top.
And Itchy.
It's
great too because the one rodent, I think is his name.
Yeah, he looks like a mouse.
But they get scared of like the cat comes in. He's like, "Come here, little fella," and then just throws the cat against
the wall. He throws the cat against the wall. And Flat Top, man, played by William Forsythe, he is so unnerving looking.
Really is.
And I don't know if that's just the way William Forsythe looks. What's the I don't know what the deal is with it.
He's always had a bit of an odd look, but they really play it up. I think it's like the skin too. It's almost
terrifying.
Like he's really
And he always looks like slimy, like
always sneering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Flat Top and Itchy come in, wipe out this crew of gangsters,
who were basically Paul Sorvino's character, Lips Manless's guys.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Big Boy's plotting a takeover here. We meet Lips in the next scene at the Club Ritz.
It's just
eating the oysters.
Just sucking them down. It's so good.
Doesn't really even look like Paul Sorvino. It's another makeup design where you can kind of see it once you know who it is. But
right. Yeah. A lot of them really disappear.
Yeah.
I was having trouble picking them out sometimes because, I know all these character actors, but I'm just like, it took me a second, like you said.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about watching that behind the scenes featurette, but it was this old 1990s behind the scenes featurette that's on YouTube. And at one point they interview the Gould's daughter, the creators of Dick Tracy's daughter, and she said when she visited the set, it was like incredible for her to see these characters that her father drew represented so well because they really look very well what the comic strip portrayed them to be.
It shouldn't work.
It shouldn't.
No, it should. It looks so bad that it works.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's another thing. I feel like this movie. 10 or so years ago, I would have kind of dismissed it. I would be like, that looks cheesy or kind of stupid. But on my ongoing campaign against CGI, apparently this was one of the last American blockbusters to be made with no CGI whatsoever.
Wow. It shows. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's those characters maybe would have been CGI heads, and it's just like they're not there. The fact that they're there, I know, I can see it. I know Dick Tracy's punching that face.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Yeah,
and so Lips is taken by... Lips, he owns this nightclub where Madonna's Breathless Mahoney performs, but Lips is taken by Big Boy, kidnapped, and given a bath, which is they pour cement over you and dump you into I guess the river, right?
Yeah.
It's really it's like there's a couple moments in this movie where I'm like, not a kid's movie.
It's funny. I had a weird thought. I'm like, this might be a good movie to show kids because there's a little sex, there's a little violence,
A little menace,
but it's he wins in the end.
And Big Boy Caprice, who is played, as we said, by Al Pacino. What a fun performance.
It's so good. You can tell he's loving it.
Delight this performance is. Especially you and I love Pacino. And I was like, I looked at his filmography too. I was like, I think this is where that Pacino began.
You think so? Because what was Son of a Woman? Was it 94?
It's 92.
That's the one everyone always points
to. And before this, it was Sea of Love, which he's kind of doing in Sea of Love.
He's got I'm getting a little more loud, Joe.
Yeah. But this, and getting the Oscar nomination for this, I think that was sealed the deal for him to just be like, I'm just going all out. And
he's having a ball.
He's having, you could tell there's so many lines he has that aren't scripted that he's just saying we'll get to it, but that escape scene when he's taken breathless, underground, and he's just yelling at her. It's so good. And he's just,
I know this is awkward.
Yeah. And then after that happens, we see Dick Tracy, who has a girlfriend named Tess, played by Glenn Headley, wonderful actress, and he runs into this kid. They're going to a diner, and this kid who we meet, this kind of street, I don't know what you call him, vagabond, little tramp kid,
little street urchin,
who steals someone's watch, and Dick Tracy pursues him, and he brings this guy's watch to I guess this hobo he lives with in this shack in a junkyard. Another terrifying character.
He might be the worst one.
He's kind of like a child abuser who also has an action figure, by the way. he got an action figure, that guy. This pot. Oh man, he has a giant head. Really disgusting looking guy, and Dick Tracy beats the shit out of him, collapses his shack, and it takes the kid back to the diner for something to eat. There's a little conflict between Dick Tracy and his girlfriend because she wants him to pursue a desk job. She doesn't want him out in the streets anymore. She's worried about him constantly. So that's where their conflict is at. But as we're watching, you see them walking around the streets, and you see all this matte painting stuff. Even the cars, there's no logos. It's so nice to see a movie where there's not a McDonald's or even the cars. I read that Warren Beatty didn't want any mention of what the brands were. He had them purposely,
It's smart. You're in that world.
Yeah.
You don't get taken out of it by, the Reebok or Burger King thing. You're in it. And it's just everything, it pops. And, I know they were trying to ape kind of the comic strip colors.
Yeah.
They really limited everything to those primary colors, mostly red, green, blue, and yellow. And every red, blue, green, and yellow is the same shade. Throughout the whole movie.
It's a 6, to represent how they printed comic strips, it's 6 primary colors.
Another thing you'd think would get tiresome. It really doesn't. No, I don't think it ever does.
So Dick Tracy has this watch, and I guess that's always been his signature thing of his. He has a watch that he communicates with the police chief on. It's so weird to watch movies from then, looking at this, what seems like it would be such an impossible thing, to see that we have more than that today.
Yeah, I mean, even that, I remember being younger, everyone, those kind of things were the kids were I want that watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, now so much more is possible. So it's interesting to see that, development. But he is called away to this warehouse where they had dumped Lips, and he finds the earring of Breathless Mahoney, and he also finds some walnuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which leads to the scene later. Hey, big boy, you like walnuts? Love them.
Yeah.
So good. Good for the liver.
And he interrogates Mumbles, who's played by Dustin Hoffman, who, if his name, gives way to his character, is he doesn't talk very well.
Yeah.
He mumbles everything.
Yep. Which apparently, you know who that was up for the role at one point?
Who's that?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which would have been interesting.
That would have been really interesting.
But Dustin Hoffman acquits himself well.
Yeah.
It's
a fun little role. It's a really nice interrogation scene where he's just being grilled under the hot lights.
What's the deal with that bear?
Oh, yeah. Well, it comes back.
It does, but it's a funny thing when it's there. You're like, why is that
there?
But it does come back.
And he essentially tells Dick Tracy who does it in his own mumbling way, which comes back to him later. But Dick Tracy, who finds these walnuts, leads to Big Boy, and he busts him for killing Lips because he's taken over Club Ritz now. How great is that scene where he's like, they're doing the dance number?
It's my favorite scene in the movie.
And he's like,
I was waiting for you to get to it. It's my favorite scene in the movie.
It's Al Pacino's Big Boy, and he's like going through the dance with all the dancers and Breathless Mahoney, like
he's the stage
choreographing
director.
them.
Yeah, and he's slapping her ass.
Yeah.
He's slapping her stomach hard. He's doing the dance numbers with them. I was watching his feet, and I'm like, this is so funny. He's singing the song.
He's singing the song with them.
More.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really, really good.
And I wrote down at one point because I just love the line he says when he is threatening the piano player. I'll take his fingers and turn them into pretzels. It's great. It's fantastic.
He's really good.
So after he gets arrested by Dick Tracy, I think that's the scene where Dick Tracy and Breathless Mahoney have their little scene where there's nudity in it. That to me was a big whoa.
Yeah.
Don't remember this part.
I didn't.
But Madonna's...
She's wearing a sheer kind of top.
Yeah, but there's like a certain light you can see.
Oh, yeah, you can see her nipple.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, without
Which
a
is
doubt.
not like, again, did not expect... You don't expect a movie that had action figures made to see some of these things about it. But seeing Madonna's nipples, and then even like people being like drowned in cement. Like, I don't know. It's just... interesting.
It almost gets back to what we were talking about on our first episode with Mario Brothers, is that like kids' movies would have a dark edge to them a lot of times. Because I don't know if they were trying to capture a fuller, like in a whole, like, everyone get your so your parents won't be bored when you take the kids or whatever. But yeah, what was this rated? I never looked at that.
I think it is PG-13.
Is it?
We'll double check that.
That makes sense because it is another thing. It's like there's a lot of shooting and shit in this movie, so it's like, it's weird.
At Tommy Gun, there's so much fun.
Yeah.
At a gangster movie, they're just. So Big Boy is released because they couldn't find his prints on the walnuts, and I love when he gets released. There's like a bunch of press, and they all have like the press sign in their hats. It's just such a great like little touches like that.
Yeah.
Really make the difference in this movie.
I like when the one reporter has like a snide remark, but Big Boy's just like, who said that? They all free. It's just little moments like that. Dude, Pacino is killing this movie.
He's having fun, like you said, and I think he's just happy to be there. And it's just a fun little... I mean, coming from his career of doing these serious movies, I think he was just excited to have a little part he can have some fun with. So as Ryan said, Dick Van Dyke is the district attorney, and the commissioner is Charles Durning. And they're kind of... I guess they're kind of like giving Tracy a talking to because he took... Big Boy in without proper evidence.
Yeah. The classic, detective who is kind of overstepping and they have to reel him in.
It's just, these two actors are great, and it's so nice to see them in this movie. I completely, like, going into this, didn't know they were in it.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so it was really nice to see them pop up. And Big Boy in another scene is like so he's trying to put together the ultimate crime, syndicate. And we have him where it's like long table, all these crime people sitting around. That's where Ryan said earlier, Catherine O'Hara is at this table. There's a great character, Pruneface.
Yeah, Pruneface, played by R.G. Armstrong.
Yeah.
Great character actor.
I saw in the trivia on IMDb, so I don't know how much truth is in this, but apparently like they were like thinking Ronald Reagan.
I heard that, yeah. Once again, it sucks. You really rely on... not being there and not talking to someone who actually worked on a movie or something, you're kind of at the mercy of what's on the internet. And man, God, the internet's awful anymore. Just trying to search for old articles and stuff. And Rotten Tomatoes Useless.
You ever like on IMDb trivia, like when you get to the bottom where like the ones that are the least voted, and it's like the actor in this also appeared with the actor's sister in this production. Like it's shit that is so you're like this isn't a trivia.
Not only that, it's not, and you'll go on Wikipedia, and you know everything's cited, right? Yeah. So you'll look at some of these footnotes, and you're like, that's the footnote. It's garbage. Not only that, you'll try to click them, and they go nowhere.
Yeah.
So you really are somewhat. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like, especially doing a research in a movie like this old, it's hard to like find accurate. That's why we end up watching these 30-year-old behind the scenes making of featurettes, because it's at least accurate information and interviews. But yeah, it's a lot of great characters in this scene. James Caan plays, what is it? It's Spumoni or something like that? Spaldoni. He's kind of the one crime boss that's not having it. He does not want to join forces with Big Boy. He's kind of out. And, you know, as I'm seeing James Caan in this movie, I'm like, I bet this character's only going to be in the movie like a minute. And sure enough, he leaves, gets into his car, and it explodes.
Right.
So Big Boy's got them, you know.
And I think I'm almost positive this is the scene. If there's it's a kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment. It's really good. You know, Dick Tracy's on the side of the building. He's trying to watch this, or, you know, kind of, you know, just spy on them, essentially. So the thing blows up, and he jumps onto a lamppost to kind of like shimmy down it. I thought it was a stunt man. Apparently it's Warren Beatty. He whacks his fucking face on this lamppost so hard. You could see his head snaps back. I believe it's Warren Beatty because he's a little trepidatious on the jump, where a stuntman would have just jumped.
Yeah.
So he kind of second guesses it. He whacks his face so hard. To his credit, he kind of recovers and climbs down a little bit. You could tell, dude.
There's another scene when it's when like the police car explodes behind him. It's later in the movie, but it's him. Like, and it comes very. And you could. They talked about in the behind the scenes featurette. Like, he didn't know because the Tommy gun was so loud. He didn't know how close it was to his back. But his car blows up, and it's very. Again, like that's when we do talk a lot about practical effects versus CGI. There is that safety element, and that you can tell. Like that's in the '90s, especially. Like that it's. When they're doing a movie like this, it's hard to contain that type of.
Sure,
but I didn't read about any injuries that were extreme.
Well, there's another one. I'll get to that later, but
yeah. So I have another Big Boy line written down. So this was great. If you ain't for the people, you can't buy the people. Great. So he's just trying to buy up the whole town.
Sure.
That's his motive.
He also keeps quoting like famous figures in history, and I'm almost certain none of those none of them are those people.
Warren, I want to come in and I want to say historical quotes that no one ever said. Like, all right.
He's like quotes in like Jefferson and Franklin and like Nietzsche, and it's like I'm like they didn't say that.
And then after this, I guess we're introduced to the blank. What is
it might be the blank. I called it No Face.
No Face.
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure out who it was?
Oh, I had seen the movie before. I remember that.
Okay. I totally forgot. Where was it? What was the scene? I was just like, oh, like it dawned on me. It didn't ruin the movie or anything for me, but I was just like, oh yeah, duh.
The voice is so weird too.
Which is this fuck? What was it?
Someone doing that voice? That's
apparently when this is what I read once again, but I think it's in Return of the Jedi when Princess Leia is like talking to Jabba. Remember when she's like disguised?
Yeah.
And it's like this. Apparently it's the same.
Same person?
I don't know if it's the same person.
Oh, it's just the same type of inflection.
I guess. I don't know. Who knows what these stupid fucking trivia.
So Big Boy does take Tracy, Flat Top, and Itchy are outside his door because Dick Tracy's looking after this orphan at that point because the kid doesn't want to go in an orphanage, so Tracy feels responsible. By the way, that's another thing. I wrote this down. Referring to the character as Tracy, is that something that I wonder is that in the comics, or like did they do that just because like calling him Dick would have been, because Big Boy calls him Dick.
Well, I think initially it wasn't like whoever came up with the comic. It wasn't, his name wasn't Dick Tracy at first. It was something else.
Okay.
And for whatever reason they made it Dick Tracy.
That just stuck me. Like everyone, excluding Big Boy, calls him Tracy. So it's a weird.
You think they were trying to avoid saying Dick?
No, I don't know what the because again, Big Boy does say it. So I don't know if they were reserving that for Big Boy to show his, the way he sees Dick Tracy,
perhaps,
or if it was just something that people typically call the character by his last name.
You could, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I would say it's almost a play on words. He's a detective.
Yeah,
he's Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy.
So it's almost like Detective Tracy, and you could just go with Tracy.
Yeah,
but, who knows?
Well, so they take him, and Big Boy has him. They try to bribe him with $15,000, which again another great scene with. I think he's even like, "Can I call you Dick? I'm going to call you Dick." He says it's something like that. Even like, "I am the law." Like he's just screaming so much. It's so great.
It's just so much fun to watch him in this.
Yeah. So Dick Tracy refuses the bribe, and the kid who was watching at the window is able to climb in and rescue him. I guess they rig this
like a boiler
or
something
to blow, and Dick Tracy gets out just in time. And I wrote this down because it was there's a cemetery scene after this with Big Boy where they're walking. You remember that? They're walking towards the camera.
Sure.
This was like one of the first moments where you realize how short Pacino is.
yeah, it's true. That's true.
Because he's surrounded by guys that are really like big, physically imposing, and he's just like shouting stuff, walking with them, and he's just like, I think he's like my height. I think he's like 5'5", 5'6", and he's just but he's talking to the DA, so that's where you find out that old Dick Van Dyke is corrupt and in Big Boy's pocket.
Right.
So. And then Tess is out with a kid, catches Tracy red-handed with breathless Mahoney in the apartment. She see them kiss? I think she's like coming around the corner.
She catches it real quick.
She reminds me a lot of like a Jessica Rabbit type in this movie. She's very similar character portrayal.
Yes, absolutely.
The way she is with him. But they decide to raid Club Ritz. And this is when... I think they basically do it as a distraction so they could plant the wire.
Right.
So they don't have anything on them. It's one of those classic scenes when the coppers are coming, so everything flips. I
can never get enough of that trope.
The gambling becomes a bar, and this becomes a cigarette.
Yeah, she flips over the chip thing, the cigarette girl, and now it's just cigarettes. It's excellent.
Yeah. So they raid Club Ritz, and they essentially use it to, while Big Boy's distracted, they wiretap his office. And great little montage where they're catching Big Boy at every turn.
So this is the second montage, right?
You might be right. There's quite a few in this movie.
Was there more than I thought? There was two. There might be more than two.
There's way more than two.
But I know there's the one.
I think there's four.
One thing that kept me from watching this, I think, for a while was, I was seeing clips from it. I was like, wow, this is really good. And I was reading comments from people saying like, yeah, it's a beautiful movie and it's not bad, but the kid really drags it down. Played by Charlie Korsmo. And I hate movies with precocious kids. Like I want. It's just they do drag the movie down for me. I'm old now. I'm not interested in any of that. It just bores me. I didn't have a problem with him in this movie. I was actually pleasantly surprised that the kid doesn't take up. See, I thought he met the kid, and then the movie becomes about Tracy and the kid.
Yeah,
and it really isn't. They stay on the Big Boy Tracy thing. Yeah. The kid's there for sure.
Well, the kid actually pulls his weight and does stuff that helps Tracy out of stuff.
Right. I did not hate him.
Yeah.
And I actually really like that one montage. When are we going to eat?
When are we going to eat?
I love that. I was like, oh, this is good. I got it.
So when are we going to eat? Yeah. And they're just cuts of different shots of the kid eating and then going, so when are we going to eat?
Yeah. But to get back to what you said, so they bug his office and now they have the inn. They know where he's operating.
Yeah.
They're busting everything.
Yeah.
And another great montage. There's that one shot where there's 12 goons on Tracy. He does one big punch and they all go back.
Yeah.
Just shit like that. It's just good stuff.
Yeah, it's really almost I want to say 60s Batman type stuff, but way more done in a way that's really cool and really not that cartoony.
Somehow they threaded the needle real good on the on the camp. It's not overly campy.
Fine line.
And yet it is.
Yeah.
But you're saying, that part, he's punching people. They're doing backflips into walls and stuff. It is that very 60s Batman type thing. But I don't know.
Well, so all these montages are typically accompanied by a song sung by Madonna.
That's the other thing. Talk about heavy hitters. This movie has 5 original Stephen Sondheim songs. And they're excellent.
Yeah.
The one I really pointed out it's called What Can You Lose? That's the one Mandy Patinkin sings with Madonna. And it's just excellent. I just loved all the songs. But yeah, like you're saying, they're generally accompanied by a song.
There's another great. I forget exactly the context, but someone asked Big Boy when 88 Keys, who is Patinkin's character, you want me to follow him? And he goes, where? To the piano?
Yeah, right.
It's just great.
It's good stuff.
So yeah, there's a lot of really solemn montages in this movie, and you can't really hear anyone talk. You can see their lips moving. Like, you see Big Boy shouting. You don't hear what he's saying. It's a really interesting device to, like, pass time in this movie.
I love montage.
Yeah.
I think for a while it was probably getting overused. I think it's insanely underused today. I think it's a great device for film. I think it works so perfectly. I mean, I could see why people could overuse it or use it the wrong way, but in this movie, it's excellent. It really it moves the story along.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to hear Big Boy constantly. You get it. You can tell he's angry or he's happy or the money's coming in or the money's not coming in and Dick Tracy is taking them all down or, you know. I love montage.
Well, montage, I think, like, sometimes it's used incorrectly. Like, this movie really uses it well as a way to pass the time without showing all, like you saying, all of these events happening. So and you have these songs, they're great. Eventually, whoever is it a cop who's listening in on the wiretap above them drops his coffee?
Yeah.
So Big Boy figures them out because coffee is dripping down from the chandelier. At the moment he discovers it too, where he discovers he's being wiretapped. It's very funny. So that happens there, and then Tess leaves Dick Tracy. Is that because of Breathless, or is it more because, I guess, the desk job thing, she just can't do it anymore?
Yeah, I kind of, for whatever reason, this part escapes me. But yeah, I think she's just like, look, you're not going to be what I want you to be, essentially.
There are a couple scenes in this movie that did bore me. And this was just one of these angles where it was like, and I'm taking notes, I'm paying attention, but it was just one of those things that it was a little hard to kind of follow with everything going on. So Big Boy ends up is it Big Boy who forges the letter to the DA from Dick Tracy, or is it
I think
face?
It's No Face.
No Face.
No Face is pulling the strings. Once Big Boy agrees, because the whole thing is No Face approaches 88 Keys, the piano player,
right,
and says, "Bring this deal to Big Boy. I want 10% of everything, and you can keep the rest." Wasn't that the idea, right? Or it was like, "I'll take care of Tracy." That's what it was. No Face was like, "I'll take care of Tracy,"
right?
Because anything happens to Tracy goes right back to Big Boy.
Yeah,
because they're enemies.
Yeah.
So I'll take care of him. Blah blah blah. Eventually, Big Boy goes for the deal, and that's when I think No Face kind of really starts setting the plan in motion.
What a great disguise in this universe, though. No Face. I mean, because it's passable.
It is.
And No Face, the character looks like it looks like a gangster with no face. It's not just like a mask. It actually looks like it's
nothing. It's just skin,
a face with no features on
it.
Right. So No Face forges a letter, or I think it is Big Boy because Flat Top, whatever. There's so many.
You might. Who knows?
He'll pull the strings. Right. So they forge a letter to the DA that says Tracy wants to meet. The kid does get sent to an orphanage at this point, a miserable-looking orphanage, and takes up the name Dick Tracy Jr., so he finally has a name. And then Dick Tracy receives a letter who he thinks is from Tess to meet her. He ends up getting gassed, and the DA is shot by No Face. Is it No Face?
I think so, right?
The DA is shot.
The plot gets a little muddy.
It gets a little muddy. But anyway, Dick gets basically framed for killing the DA.
Yeah, now here's the one thing about injuries. I was like watching it, and Dick Van Dyke, he's in the room. Mm-hmm. He's playing the DA.
He trips over an ottoman.
Well, he gets shot. And then, he does almost like the classic Dick Van Dyke pratfall. And I'm like, damn, he's not a spring chicken anymore. I'm like, he commits to that fall. Yeah, well, he broke his shoulder doing that.
Oh, no.
Dude, he goes down hard. And he's an older guy. But he broke his shoulder.
He's still doing stuff. He's still pretty active. It's amazing. I did check out that last year, that new Mary Poppins movie. He's in that. And at one point he hops up on the desk. He's doing a dance number. Like, he's still very physically. I mean, that's probably years from just doing that type of stuff, remaining physical. But I think he's 94 right now.
Wow.
So he's up there, and I mean, it sucks he broke his shoulder, but I feel like he's the type of, a lot of the people in this movie commit to their performance, and he's someone that always commits physically to his roles, so it makes no surprise he broke his shoulder. He gets framed for that. Dick Tracy goes to prison.
City jail.
City jail. There. But eventually his, people help him escape, his fellow officers and detectives. He has a great kind of team of like-minded detectives. I don't have... the one I forget who plays him, but I've seen him before.
Sieber Cassell.
Sieber Cassell. That's
Oh,
what it is.
yeah.
So they help him escape, and by then they find Mumbles, and they play that original recording for Mumbles of Big Boy Did It.
Well, there was a recorder in that big ceramic bear.
Yeah, that we talked about earlier.
Water thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he kind of fiddles with the recording, and
he
all
slows
of a sudden,
it down.
Yeah, Mumbles is very clear.
You can hear what he says.
Big Boy Did It.
It's in the original it comes out like blah, 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 but when it's slowed down, it's Big Boy Did It. And then once Mumbles realizes he's in deep shit for ratting out Big Boy, he talks with perfect clarity. It's a great little reveal.
It is good.
And he just goes, 88 Keys did it. Like he's goes right into it. Basically gives Dick the validation to go after Big Boy. But No Face has blamed or has also framed Big Boy for kidnapping Tess.
Right. And I love how all the crimes he's committing, like they keep saying it. They're like, kidnapping's a federal felony. And, he's like, it's a felony. I got
Yeah.
It's like, you've been committing other crimes, I think. But this is the one that really puts them over.
Yeah. So there's a great little confrontation that happens here at the Club Ritz. This is when there's, the Tommy guns are out. I feel like most of Big Boy's crew dies. Itchy dies.
Yeah, they all get wiped out at one point.
Yeah.
It's funny, too, because he doesn't realize he's getting set up, and he finds Tess Trueheart, and he's like, why are you here?
Yeah.
He can't figure out what's going on. It's really funny.
Yeah, so he takes her as his hostage at that point because they're coming after him. So he has like kind of an underground, let's do like the wine cellar. And that's where he's just like, he's saying so many fun little, asides to this. He's just having so much fun. So he takes her. They end up running into like a bridge is opening up.
Drawbridge is going up, and they kind of go into like the gear house.
Yeah. And this is where they're just Dick Tracy meets them, and the final fight kind of happens.
I thought this part sucked.
It's just it's
very. It's not that it's anticlimactic. They're kind of. It's almost slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it could have moved a little quicker. I don't know. It was weird. It's like a lot of hiding in shadows, and it's just I don't know. That part didn't work for me.
Yeah, it could have had a bigger climax. I feel like they went all out with so many other things that it's like in this boiler room. It's like even Big Boy's like death is kind of
he just kind of falls down the thing, and
it's like we don't really see him. Maybe he would have came back or something. Who knows what they were planning on doing?
It just wasn't. I could see why they did it like that. It just didn't kind of. For whatever reason, that scene didn't work. It just doesn't have the same kind of visual panache as the other parts.
Yeah, but during this confrontation, Big Boy shoots the blank, and when Tracy runs over, reveals it's Breathless Mahoney. Madonna has been pulling the strings as the blank.
Right.
So when did you realize that?
God, I can't remember. I had it in my head. I should have wrote it down. But
it's not obvious.
No, but there was a certain part where it dawned on me. I was just like, oh, duh.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact. I'm going to come back to this action figure line again. But there is an action figure of the face of the blank, and you can take the mask off, and it's just Madonna underneath. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the rarest action figures like that you can buy nowadays.
Well, I heard too because they made it. And they realized, like, oh, shit, this ruins the ending.
Yeah.
So they tried to pull it off the shelves, and they did, but they didn't in Canada.
Yeah. So some got through in Canada.
Some got through. So, yeah, it's a very expensive or, sought-after action figure.
Can you imagine, like, if they're just, like, in a box somewhere? Like, they have to be, I would imagine. And there's stuff, like, old employees for these toy companies and their relatives that just have this shit in their attic that don't know what they have. Because, man, that would be one that you could...
That's a rare one.
That's a rare one. Yeah, so it kind of wraps up there. I mean, Tess accepts that Dick Tracy is going to be on the streets. That's who he is.
They basically agree to get married.
They agree to get married. He very kind of cleverly, not cleverly, but like he throws the ring at her. He doesn't really propose.
Right.
He runs off with the kid. Yeah, I mean, it's almost, it doesn't really like do the Super Mario Brothers thing where like you set up that sequel, but it leaves enough open where you're like, oh, we're going to see these characters again. And I have the box office numbers down. I mean, the movie does up to the time, and it is released under the Touchstone label, so it's not Disney, it's Touchstone, which is kind of, they use that for their more adult.
Yeah, they didn't want to put the Walt Disney Presents banner over this one.
But it's 22 million its opening weekend. was the third highest opening weekend of 1990 and Disney's biggest opening ever.
Wow.
So huge, opening for Disney. They had spent, we talked a little bit about the advertising. They spent so much money on advertising this movie, too.
I saw one figure. It was like double the actual budget, which wouldn't surprise me, but Jesus Christ. And you got it. So here's the thing. I vaguely remember this. When Batman was coming out, you could not escape it. It was everywhere. Every single bus stop had that logo. It was on a cup. It was on a plate. It was on your face. It was everywhere. Like Batman, you were inundated with
cereal, food products.
Everything.
Anywhere you went, you would see the Bat.
Well, once again, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier about Batman was popular to begin with, but the movie, huge hit, right?
Right.
So, oh, God, that works. Just shove it down people's throats. So they tried this with Dick Tracy. They did a ton of advertising. As you said, they spent a lot on it. They had the McDonald's tie-in. Dick Tracy. Warren Beatty had some Barbara Walters interview. They did 28 different TV ads for it.
Jeez.
And it kind of worked. The movie was a hit. It's funny, though. I didn't watch the interview. I should look it up. Beatty with Barbara Walters. But he bitches about the marketing. He said it was anti-cultural. He didn't like how much they were doing it. But that's the trade-off I get. You make your movie, but
yeah,
hey,
sure.
We're going to do our thing. But what else here? Let's see. Another weird little wrinkle is, I don't know if you remember this, but novelizations of films used to be a big deal.
Oh, huge.
Big deal.
Yeah.
This movie went through seven different printings of the novel for the film.
Like that were released, not like drafts.
That's a good question. That okay. I don't know. But still, it's like that much time was put into film novelizations. Like, I really remember seeing these a lot.
So the deal with film novelizations, would they use the script and then like whatever they can gather from the set? Because they had to be written at like while the movie was in production.
Yes, that's how it would often go. A quick little weird story. Buddy of mine, I used to hang out a lot in his basement. He had books everywhere. Shout out to Joe Mealy. But I go into his bathroom one time, I'm taking a leak, and I look over, and I go, "You have the Back to the Future 2 novelization." And I go out, I'm like, "Joe, are you reading this?" He's like, yeah, it's all right. He was saying there's like a scene in Back to the Future 2 where I think if you remember the movie where Marty McFly's girlfriend, they like leave her in an alley.
Yeah.
Two cops come up and kind of find her. It's a real quick scene in the movie. He said it's like pages of dialogue between these two cops.
Wow.
So I think that's what they do in these books.
Yes.
I've never really read one.
So there's another thing I'll have to put out the end. I follow them on Twitter. There's a documentary coming out that's doing this, and their whole Twitter is just they post pictures of these books. That
Oh, that's really cool.
You have
put that up.
There's the Beatles help so many of these weird movies had novelizations.
Every movie did, as far as I know.
And it was just like a tie-in, and it was usually the plot of the film. And, they would probably get the screenplay or an abridged version. But that's where you see a lot of stuff that gets deleted from the film makes it into these novelizations because they were using the screenplay, not the finished film.
Quick little... it just popped in my head for any Simpsons fans, classic Simpsons fans out there. There's a great episode where the Itchy and Scratchy movie's coming out. And Bart's a big fan, but he does something bad, and Homer bans him from seeing it. He's like, "You can't see the movie. That's your punishment." So he tries. Bart buys the novelization of the Itchy and Scratchy movie. It's like a foot thick, and it's written by Norman Mailer. And he can't read it, and he throws it out, and it completely flattens all the trash. Oh, man.
That's hilarious.
Film novelizations. I don't know. I've never read one personally, but...
Yeah, it's interesting that, there was that many for this. What was the holdup? Warren Beatty wouldn't,
I don't know. I don't think it was a Warren Beatty thing. I think it was a studio thing.
Well, yeah, Disney, at this point, this is a huge film for them. They obviously, I think, I read that they did make him cut a lot.
Well, apparently there's the movie's about an hour and 40 minutes.
I think it's around then.
Apparently a 2 hour and 15 minute version exists.
I would love it.
I would more Big Boy. I'll take it.
And news just broke yesterday about this Coppola doing the Godfather 3 thing. It's going to keep happening. Now that streaming is more prevalent, there are going to be more people are going to be given money to do this.
I was almost going to suggest Godfather 3 for this podcast. I don't think it's super appropriate, but I'll defend that movie.
Well, Rocky 4, there's so many that they're talking about, I'm doing a director's cut now. And I encourage it. if they want to fight for it, and this is one of those movies, much like other ones we've talked about, where I'm very curious to see what else is out there.
And they did a lot of work for this movie. So if a cut exists with almost an extra hour of footage, I'd be happy to watch it. I mean, come on, they did. Because originally they were going to, let's film it on location. And Silbert was just like, that's probably not a good idea. They did 53 interior sets they built, 25 exterior sets, almost 57 matte paintings. Like, they went really kind of all out. And I would love to see that stuff. Yeah, and I can tell it's like the exterior shots are on the Universal backlot. But so they had to really dress it up with those 6 colors like we talked about. Like, it wasn't easy to do this. No. God, what did I read? It took a year to edit? No, actually, that might have been Reds.
Back to Reds.
Reds was awesome. Reds is going to be my new... It seems to be funny because it's a Warren Beatty thing. Because I feel like he was in a Western that I really talked about a lot. Was it McCabe and Mrs. Miller?
Yeah, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Oh, yeah. In our Popeye episode, Ryan really went on about McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which I've yet to see, but you were...
Warren Beatty's fucking awesome,
Warren Beatty's great. Does he still own the Dick Tracy rights?
Yes,
I was trying to follow that story. It was really hard to...
As far as I know, he does. Okay. Up until 2015.
Because he lost them, then he bought them back, and then he lost them again, then got them back, and then...
something like that.
He, in 2008 or something, he did an interview with Leonard Maltin in character just so he can hold on to the rights.
Did you watch that?
No.
I didn't watch it either.
I know I've seen it, clips of it before a long time ago. Warren Beatty was 52 when this movie came out.
People were saying that he was a little long in the tooth to be actually playing this role.
But I think it works great.
It works. You know what else, too? This is one of those things where it falls into the trap of you have a character. It's almost like the thing I was bitching about with Tom Hanks the other week, is where you have a character that's the good guy who does the good thing, and it becomes a little bland. He plays Tracy good, I got to say. He plays it,
Yeah, how do you play Dick Tracy in a way that's...
Right, when you're that kind of character, there's not much to you where, especially when you put it up against a big Boy Caprice who's chewing every bit of scenery and not you almost look a little blander in retrospect, which, I'll give credit to Warren Beatty for putting his ego in check a little bit.
Yeah, well, knowing to step aside and,
basically in every shot of the movie.
And, and that would have been why, it wasn't a huge hit with kids, I think, because it's not a Batman. It's a very hard sell. I think they really overspent on the marketing, and I think it suffered because of that.
Really did.
But I've seen the interview where he comes out every now and again, says, "Oh, I would like to do a Dick Tracy sequel," and I think it would kind of work. An older Dick Tracy,
Why not?
Yeah,
for the most part, everyone's still alive in the cast.
Well,
the main players,
most of them die, so it wouldn't even.
Big Boy could live.
You could do it. And
Big Boy could live.
And Dick Tracy Jr. There's ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that
the kid teaches law now. So somewhere, I'm serious.
The actual actor.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's doable. I would like to see this universe again. I think the commitment to it is, if they were to go all in and do the practical stuff, I think it would be really cool to see again. Oscars are, this movie won Oscars.
7 nominations, 3 wins for art direction, obviously set design, makeup, which, an original song. They kind of,
I think it ties Black Panther, I read, for a comic book film with Oscar wins.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie had 7 Oscar noms, 3 wins, art direction, set design, makeup, and original song.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And they deserved it. Especially the art direction.
Oh my god!
And the makeup. And the songs. It's all well deserved.
As a whole, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's really something to look at, and just it's fun to watch. Like I said, dragging parts here and there, but I really recommend people take another look at Warren Beatty. For whatever reason, he dropped off the map. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Maybe it's errors of Hollywood. You know what I mean? He just kind of saw his error was up. And I got to watch Rules Don't Apply.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like he tried to come back with Rules Don't Apply.
And I heard it was good. It kind of bombed.
Yeah, it bombed. And but everyone and their mother's in that movie. There's so many good actors in that movie. And I love an old Hollywood story.
Yeah, and it's Howard Hughes. So,
yeah.
So it's probably it's worth watching. I'm going to check it out.
Doesn't it have that the Han Solo actor in it? Is that the
whatever his name
is?
Hansel
Engeltort?
Alden
Pop-Tart?
Aldenrick.
Anvil.
Someone go, dude, change your name. Seriously. Everyone does it. Just do it. But honestly, I hope people come away from this saying like, oh, let me check out Warren Beatty because he's a really worthwhile artist, in my opinion. I mean, like I said, I think we get lost in reputations a lot with people, but the guy had a vision and he was really good at executing it. And I think that's the main thing is when you can get it across the finish line and it looks how it looked in your head, you've succeeded.
Yeah.
You've done something well.
Yeah, I'm very glad that we kind of happened upon talking about this and then decided to watch it for this podcast because it was just a great. It was one of those movies I was like really excited to watch for this. There's like this and Nothing But Trouble. I was like really excited to rewatch because I hadn't seen them in years. And you kind of watch these movies with a new set of eyes when you're grown up, and
for sure
you find some things you didn't get before. So yeah, this was a great pick. Anything else that you want to add on Dick Tracy?
No, I hope we did it justice. I hope people check it out. Yeah, that's the one thing when we're doing this. Watch the movie. The movie is part of it.
Yeah, I would love everyone to watch the movies beforehand. That's why at the end we're going to start. We always let you know what we're doing next. This movie, as of the recording date of this, which is September 4th, it is streaming on HBO. That's how I watched it.
Heaven Can Wait is on HBO too. Check that out.
And I think McCabe and Mrs. Miller might be on HBO too.
It was,
but I took it off.
I don't know.
HBO Max has a deal with Criterion, I believe, so they have a lot of Criterion stuff on there.
I don't know what their deal is, but they got a lot of great old movies on there. So I would check that out. But yeah, I think McCabe might be on there. I know Heaven Can Wait is on there, and Dick Tracy.
Yeah, check it out. And we were talking about I think we're going to do some more of these type movies. We were just talking about, Ryan pointed my attention. There were 3 movies that came out kind of like Dick Tracy, which was The Rocketeer, The Phantom, and The Shadow, which are all kind of these 90s movies. Are they all 90s? One might be 80s.
Yeah, they're basically 90s.
But
yeah, they update.
They tried to copy that Batman formula with these comic heroes.
Yeah, it was, the old-timey serials.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to come back to some of those at a point.
Yeah, for sure.
We definitely don't want to do an adaptation next. We've done a lot in this. It just happens because a lot of these movies end up being an adaptation of something. Mm-hmm. So we put out a poll last week. It was either Dick Tracy or 1941. We will definitely come back to 1941 at a later date, but we don't want to throw it back into our next poll. So when this podcast airs, I'm going to put out a poll. It's going to be either Death to Smoochie, which is Robin Williams and Edward Norton, and then Matinee, which is a Joe Dante directed movie starring John Goodman. So 2 different films. We went through our email suggestions, and those are ones that came up. So we're going to put out a poll. You choose what we cover next. It's either going to be Death to Smoochie or Matinee.
Yeah.
So
two good picks, in my opinion. Picks, so I'm looking forward to either.
Yeah, ones I haven't seen a little bit. And we talked about when we go into these movies, we're trying to find movies that have a lot to talk about. Either the filmmakers have an interesting story behind them, the cast have it, the production itself. We keep talking about movies that have really interesting production history. We get a lot of great suggestions, but we really want to talk about movies where there's a lot to talk about. So if we didn't get your suggestion or haven't yet, it's only because we really want to talk about movies where there's a lot to talk about for now.
And we are getting a lot of suggestions too. So
great suggestions, keep them coming.
And we basically do one a week. So I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah. I will finally, as I always, I'll point to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/hatsoffentertainment. I have put out a few bonus episodes on there. Sometimes our conversations run long, and I do put some of those extra conversations. Usually it's nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Sometimes it's just a bit of an extrapolation.
But there's a great story Ryan tells about seeing snakes on a plane.
And being ejected from the theater.
There's another one where I pitched my Mrs. Doubtfire 2 screenplay idea I wrote as a teen.
Which I think is a winner. So that's a great script. Maybe you said you found the script.
I found the script.
Oh, maybe we'll read it on Patreon.
I would love that.
Oh, we're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's a wicked good script, dear. I can't wait. So yeah, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We are going to give back a lot of extra content on there. We also launched a separate YouTube account. I didn't want to keep putting all of our podcast episodes on the Hats Off Entertainment YouTube. So if you were listening on YouTube and were wondering where episodes went, just give Almost Cult Classics the podcast a search. You can find our separate YouTube. So please comment and view there if you do listen on YouTube. If not, you can get us wherever you get podcasts from still.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
As always,
see you next time on Almost Cult Classics.
Until then.